I've prepared a bunch of slides for you to give you a customer perspective on which problem we were facing, how we were looking at it, how we brought in MarkLogic, and what for us search that talks back means. But before, and now I have to find the right button. Yeah, just introduce myself. So my first name is Koen. I do live in Belgium. I'm not a native English speaker, but we do speak Dutch and French in Belgium. So I'm a native Dutch speaker. So sometimes if I don't find my words, don't be surprised. I'm still looking for them. I love sports. And this morning I walked over here and I saw a lot of people also enjoying the weather and do a lot of sports. Unfortunately, I did not have my sports gear with me. I start every day with a cappuccino. I'm not Italian, but still, it's very important to me, and I am, as mentioned, the CIO for Belgium, for Wolters Kluwer. I'll come back on Wolters Kluwer laterly, but it's already a company of 180 years old. I work in the office in Mechelen, which is in Belgium, but as I said, we're a special country, so we also speak French. So in French, it's called Malines. And the headquarters is in the Netherlands, is in Alphen aan de Rijn. I do recognize some faces here in the room. They also work for Wolters Kluwer. So they're all also supporting me here in this challenge, which I took a few months ago. And the thing we're talking about, or we're going to talk about a bit, is our Connect project, because that is basically the heart of the search which talks back theme. Now, brief short introduction or some short key things about Wolters Kluwer. As I said, it's founded 180 years ago. It's from origin a traditional publisher. By the way, welcome everybody. Something like eat, sleep, rave, repeat. Huh? Well, might be better to wait 2 minutes. All right, so we're a global company, and we serve basically 4 markets: the legal market, tax market, health market, and compliance market. And we have a huge range of product portfolio. But something which is why I put up also this slide is to show there's no book on here anymore. And that is important. Just to give you an overall view, about 4.3 billion euro revenue, more than 75% out of recurring revenue. But what is important is on the left side, only 15% of the revenue is still coming from print. So it's a company who has made a huge transformation from print into digital solutions and services on top of that. We do that in those 4 professions, highly summarized. The biggest part of the revenue, 60%, comes out of the US or North America, 30% out of Europe. Just to give you a glance on Wolters Kluwer, but that's not what we're here to talk about. I'm going. So this case, and the case I'm going to present you, is a Belgian case. Wolters Kluwer is a global company. But we're also a bit organized still in country-based, because a lot of the things we do are based on the law and out of what's coming out of legislation, and this legislation is typically country-based. So it is a part of a global story, but it is also mainly a Belgian story. But you can apply it anyway if you want. We basically face, or we looked at, when you look at it, you can look at it from different challenges. So you have the overall challenge, which everybody knows, is all the customers around the world are facing productivity questions and complexity questions. So we all want to do more with less, and in terms of complexity, of course, everything is getting more complex. The legislation is getting more complex, but also technology is getting more complex. So if I go to the Belgium case, what we were confronted with, and it's about 2 years ago we started this journey. So we're starting to look, and one of the things we measure on our products is Net Promoter Score. Net Promoter Score is a simple way to measure quickly with your customers if they're going to recommend you to their colleagues or not, bottom line. So you have basically supporters or detractors, or you have neutrals. So when you look at it, that gives you some kind of score, and this is typically a kind of loyalty score we're measuring. So we started to see that on some of those our online research products, those scores are starting to fall back. So we started to do sessions with customers, customer panels, do a lot of interviews with customers, trying to understand why this is starting to happen. And the key thing which came up is, or the key customer problem is, search takes too long. So again, the productivity team is coming back, but it basically, you got questions like, what do you want me to type in to find my document? How does your search engine work? Because then I can try to tune my search and find the data I'm looking for. Remember, I mean, we're coming out of the publishing world. We were producing very specialized book, deep domain knowledge, subject matter experts really writing those. Typically, those books are in the libraries. People will go to the library and look for that data. So this is typically the way they're still thinking often, and they're trying to figure out what or how have you prepared that. A second thing, when we did those analysis, and this is an example from a tax professional market. On itself, it doesn't matter. But we realized also, much better than we did before, the difference between the customers on itself. Some are every day 4 hours in that software and are doing searches, which is a different context than the context of an occasional user who once every 2 or 3 weeks, when he's confronted with a specific situation, wants to look up something specifically. So they are also behaving completely different in the product or in the search. So sometimes people know exactly what they're looking for. They're just looking for confirmation. So those people often ask the question, what do you want me to type in, so I can immediately find that thing and can get that information, while somebody else might not know what they're looking for. Compare it a little bit to a navigation system in your car. It's different when you don't know where you're going in a foreign country, or you know exactly where you want to go and the system says you to go right, and you know that turning left is the quickest way. So that's the customer perspective we were dealing with. The second perspective we were dealing with is, employee perspective. Why is that also important? Because the whole value of our products is based on our domain expertise, and the way our editors and our authors are able to put that expertise into the documents, into the database, and make sure that everything is correct. Because, I mean, after all, when you have to be right is our tagline. That's basically where it comes from. But those employees and those authors, they're confronted with a vast array of situations. Specifically, example is some of our solutions which we have are fit for print still. I mean, you do a transformation, but originally they're built for print. We're also a company with built on top of acquisitions, or as a result of acquisitions. So you have different legacy systems. Sometimes we have systems where it's optimized for a certain type of content. And we have also sometimes by product line, at some point in time, you put something together, put the data in, and you make the product. But overall, it confronts ourselves or our employees, and certainly our subject matter experts. What do I have to do where, in which system, with which tool? And then the product guys, then they think about some kind of new product, and then they have to figure out where is all that. So that's the employee perspective. The market perspective, already mentioned, you hear it a lot, but free content on itself and e-government is the basic of also the products which we sell. On top of that, of course, we have deep domain knowledge we add on top of that. But there is a challenge out there because more and more becomes free and is searchable through Google. But on the other hand, you also have the dimension of technology. The technology is rapidly changing, often more rapidly than organizations or enterprise can follow. This morning also, during the innovation part, there was you hear that also. Enterprise is a lot slower to adapt technology than what's happening in the real world. So that's a challenge. And of course, and a good challenge for us in the market is also the complexity of law. The more the politicians make law more complex, the better for us. That's what it is. So what's the Belgium case and how we come to the search talk back team? If you take those problems, we've basically put together a huge program where we basically put things into a content store and put search that talks back kind of behavior on top of that. So when I'm diving into the content store part, this is a picture, and it's a very complex picture, and I asked for something to show and whatever. Don't try to read it, but I'll give you a perspective. This is the world somewhere in end of 2015, which we had. So what you have is, if you look at things like legislation is stored in an environment here, stored in an environment there, and an environment there is edited through tools there. So you have legislation, for instance, which is stored there, and other types of content stored in different cases. Sometimes it's copy of the same legislation, which is edited with this tool here and then copied there for a product purpose, because you see here, for instance, product lines. This is, for instance, classification systems. These are editorial systems. So you have, if you look at the different dimensions, you have all kinds of dimensions and all kinds of solutions which over time have been grown through the different, for various reasons. So what we decided then is to start a project and try to get rid of the old silos approach. Didn't agree this morning, but I learned that silos is to store corn. I absolutely agree. So we also think we would do that differently. So what we did is we embarked on a journey to change it to a single integrated content store. So what we're basically doing is move this into one single integrated content store and starting to put key capabilities around that content store. An aggregation layer, a creation layer, thesaurus management, classification, product configuration layer. So you start to put those things together. Today, we've already embarked on that. We are halfway through or something like that. Some people will say 30%. I mean, you can work on this forever depending on how you look at that, but we're far away in that journey. But even today, as I said, it's not only a local Belgium story also anymore, but it starts to become also a global story. So today we're also moving this into the cloud, into a cloud implementation, and start sharing also these capabilities with other countries within the group. And even better, other countries will start also developing capabilities on top of that, which we then can reuse, so we are able to starting to do acceleration from a technology perspective within the company. But that's what we do, and that's how we approach it around the content store. Of course, the fact that I'm standing here is not by accident. So we've chosen, for various reasons, the MarkLogic store. You can read this, what it says, but bottom line, I heard this morning in the keynotes this morning exactly the reasons why we choose it. It's because it combines the document store with triples and you have an integrated search. So this is key. The fact that you can load the data and put the data in the environment without having to define upfront the data model and know exactly what you want in 5 years on the data model, so that you just can load it and work on that. The fact that we don't have to pull data out, do transformation and put it back in, so that you have natively those capabilities around that. So there are many reasons, and these are the key reasons why we ended up with MarkLogic, and then started to work with MarkLogic, and with assistance of them did a prototype, a POC, and built those environments confirming that those things are possible. But this is the reason why we did that. Because it saves time, we can load the data much more quickly. We are able to, if we want to do a transformation, to even do the transformation internally. But much more, and very important for us, is the combination of the documents, which is the traditional way of looking at it, even if it's XML or whatever, but also with the triples information. So the knowledge graph is a key element also for us towards the future, because, I mean, I'll come back to my thing. So we saw this morning Gary Bloom presenting. He's the CEO of MarkLogic in London. But the good news is, if you now put my introduction together, because I also attended, you start to see building the knowledge graph. And that's exactly what we want our editors to do and our authors to do, is not only write documents with content, but also help to build that knowledge graph and extend that knowledge graph. Because the more you have that metadata, the relation between your data and all the content in your data, the more you can start doing that with that towards applications in the future. So what we really want to do is shift to answers. And now comes the more theoretical example a little bit. The question which we are going to ask is more or less, what is the deductibility of vehicle cost? This is by far the last slide in English, then starts some Dutch slides, so I'll do some translations for you. But what I want to show is and what I explain is, we have documents in our content store, and in those documents you find information about the rejected expense and car cost percentages. You find examples, but it's spread all over. So even if a customer asks the question, what is the percentage of the deductibility of a vehicle cost? I mean, he's probably will have to read many documents, and then when he's read them, make that analysis. So that is basically the challenge we have. So we're building, and that's what we're doing, and that's what is key here, is building that knowledge graph and making sure that that knowledge is constructed. So what we're trying to do, what we're doing is, and what we're trying to do, but the editors do that, is that inside the documents, they will basically take a piece of data inside the document. So it's not anymore about document, but it's about data in the document, and say, okay, this is a percentage, and it's about car cost. But on top of that, you also can have inside those metadata, you can say, but car cost, I can broaden it into the term cost, or I can narrow it in the term parking cost or fuel cost. It sounds logical, but you basically have to make sure that you get that knowledge inside the graph so that search engines can start working with that. So even when you type in cost, so you can get rid more and more about the question, does somebody has to type in auto cost or car cost, or can somebody type in just cost and also reach this piece of information maybe in a later stage when he adds the word car to the search term. So this is the type of way we're starting to combine it, and that's where MarkLogic, of course, comes in, because you can have both the documents as the whole relationships, you can store them all and search them in an integrated search. Some screenshots, but I was tempted to do a live demo, but I think it's still better to have some security here and not trying to type it away. So, but this is what we call, and this is the front end, which gives a view onto our content store. And here's the Dutch. Car cost is in Dutch, it's called auto cost. But when you start typing that, you get immediately a suggestion. This is not, so this is the tool the editors and the authors need to use. This is not the tooling, or this is not a part of the commercial product. This is how the inside subject matter experts can steer a little bit the behavior later on in the product. But when it's about car cost, you get an overview of the capabilities, but you see immediately already, and that's because it's already, I mean, the first time it's empty, but this is of course a living thing. You see here rejected expense. So when you have a look at rejected expense, it will give you more information by saying, okay, we have information about percentage, exception, example. So you find more type of information there. So when you drill deeper, so you basically end up in a document. This document, if I would scroll, that's the disadvantage, of course, of screenshots. But if you would scroll, you would see it's a few pages long. So, but specifically where you're talking about, and I take the example of when you look in the document and you talk about percentage, you will see that editors have the possibility to what we call enrich the document. So open up an editor mode, and in the editor mode, they basically can, in the document, select sections, so create snippets, data snippets, and say on this snippet, in this case, this may be better on the next screen. So that data snippet it's about percentage, and it's linked to car cost, and it's linked to rejected expense. And going over time, they can even further enhance it. I mean, then there are different technologies and even partners of MarkLogic, which also helps us with that, but we all store that in the MarkLogic database. So if editors do that, and that's the key of it, so what does it mean in terms of the product, and how does it bring us to the product? So, or what for us means search that talks back. How have we defined in Wolters Kluwer search that talks back? We basically break it down in 3 steps. We say, guide me before and during search, guide me after search, and guide me in the document. What is the traditional way, or the historical long time ago, how was search done? Search is basically full text search. So when you type in words or key phrases or phrases, basically there's a matching. The search engine is looking for a matching in terms of the text, and when it finds it, it finds it. When it doesn't find it, you have to retype the text. This is starting to be different. So I'll show you a little bit how we done this in a product. This is an example out of a product. I could do that live, but that was more tricky because it's going to go live, this product version, in a few weeks. So there is a risk that they would change some things during the presentation. But the point is, when you come up into the search, already up front, you can start doing some kind of pre-selection. So you don't know in which mindset and which persona the user or the customer at that moment is in the software. He could be somebody who is there every day, or somebody who is occasionally there. You don't know that, but you could already do some pre-selections, pre-filtering, or already set some certain criteria even before you start your search, before you even start typing something in. So this is really where it already starts. When you go further and you start to type car costs, but in Dutch it's auto cost, but you start to type auto, so you have the traditional way of when you type the word wheel is typically filling up and giving you suggestions of the data it can find. But the big difference is, of course, this is much more coming out of, it's not only coming anymore out of the fact that you have documents and you've classified documents, but it's also a lot more into it. I talked about the metadata, about the relationships, so you're also looking in all the possible variety and set of content to give you suggestions. So when you talk, and that's also what you see is when they start typing, fairly quickly, the filter will tell you where to go. So as a user, you just click on auto cost. You don't have even to complete your search. If you want, you can. And as you can see, and that's the guiding during search, we will basically lock the concept car cost already into the search. So we're also dynamically framing your search during your search to be able to continue. Now, what's interesting is, and that I cannot demo, I considered doing a movie, but without having to type anything, this will come up. So when you select auto cost, it will lock it, and it will immediately give you, without even typing a word, the next type of concepts it finds which are related to that. So in this case, you see as the second one, rejected expense. So you don't even have to start typing rejected expense. You just can say, okay, I'm fine with rejected expense. And then you get same behavior again. Do we have behind rejected expense, again, a set of concept of terms which we can suggest to you, even without you having to type anything or going into the search mode into the text. In this case, I wanted to have something about percentage. I don't see it immediately in percentage. No problem. I'll type in percentage, and I hit the search button, which is basically now the search engine is really going into the documents and into the database and looking for, okay, what can I offer you? And then you get traditionally, which is also what you get in Google, is the list of documents with that information. The only difference, of course, here is, and that's again where we now do the improvement, you don't only see the document on itself with a link and a lot of information, but you see that data snippet, which I showed you before, which the editor or the subject matter expert has upfront more or less predefined and says, okay, if somebody's looking for percentage in terms of this type of cost, this is the table we're talking about. So he's even already previewing the table, and what you would scroll, you will find a list of 10 documents where there are similar tables, sometimes the same table in another document, but you'll basically see this coming up. So I see as you scroll, you see the advances. So not only a link with a title, but you see already a little bit more, so you can have a feeling, is this what I'm looking for? When you hit the first link, then you get into the mode like that is guide you into the document. So then basically you get more into the viewing of the document, which imagine the professional, which is a tax or a legal professional looking for something specifically. He's in the document. He gets basically information where in the document he is based on some kind of content glossary. And on top of that, he's immediately also in the place where he looked for. So he sees exactly what he's looking for. And by the way, he also not only sees the table with the percentages, but also the reference to the law. So even when he's in the document, he could continue in the document and look in the document, but he could also say, okay, I know this is linked to the law. I want to know more about that. So, okay, so what happens, it opens up the law. So what you see still on the left side, the document which he was, and this is the document with the table, and then it opens the law in that specific article, and will start to also give you the text, the law on itself. Because this was a text which is basically coming out of a commentary of a subject matter expert on the law, and you even have the supporting element on the law. So this is the way, what we define as search that talks back. It means that you try to get an interaction between the user and helping him or her as good as possible towards the answer on a specific question. Because like in the past, they had to read maybe 10, 15 documents, go through it, scroll it, and make the assessment themselves. So we're trying to bring that closer to the answer, and this is the way we do it. So this is the whole Belgium case, and this is how we build it. Any questions? Yes?
Sorry, we need to take the microphone because we are recording so that it can be captured.
Hi. Great demo, thanks. You're demonstrating manual classification or categorization of the snippets of content. Have you considered or looked at automating that process? Because that looks like quite a time-intensive process.
It's what we call semi-automated. It means you get suggestions. The editor gets suggestions. So on a key piece of text, get suggestions. We suggest these contents. We should suggest these things, and it's even ranked in terms of we think it's 100% sure it's about that, 90% sure about that. I mean, I could give a different demo on that enrichment, but this is what we do. So we offer a lot of help to the editors. We're still today not yet in the moment where we say, okay, it's just automated. We still have manual control, but we expect that over time we'll start to understand when it's, for instance, above 85%, it's probably always right, so these ones will filter out.
Great, thank you.
I have the mic circulated.
I have a question about the autocomplete. So in the autocomplete, what you see is the metadata or the keywords on the documents, right? This is a metadata-driven search rather than keyword search. Do I understand this correctly?
We're combining all the different possibilities we have. So you have predefined concepts, you have dictionary lists, you have keyword search. So we're combining everything there. So it's not restricted. It's this or it's that. It's combining everything so that the best chance of suggestion you get. But in the application, there it's much more driven by the concept. I would call it the relationship between the concept, because that's how we enrich the data, so to get faster to the document. So it's true that in the product it's much more driven by that.
Based on the keywords that are already set on the documents during the editorial process, right?
Well, yes and no, because that is, it starts from there. But there is something like language and dictionaries where the relationship between words, the synonyms of words, all those things are existing, and that is enriching and and is existing more and more and more even in the free internet world. So we're ingesting all those type of knowledge also to make sure that things are disappearing. I'll give an example. So some words mean the same thing, so that's an easy one. But it starts to get difficult when you talk, for instance, about law, and you talk about a cat or a horse or a dog. I mean, in the terms of law, it's the same law term. So there, indeed, we have specific dictionaries which help to say, okay, in the law, this term might mean when somebody types cat or dog, it means a small home animal or these type of things, but it's different type of things. So there's a combination of things which just exist in law, in language, and things which we are preparing specifically. But it's, yeah, we're opening up to as much as possible sources of data so that you're not restricted by predefined words.
Okay, but it's all dictionary-driven and relationship-driven between
Yes.
the metadata.
Yeah.
Okay.
Somebody else?
My day will come.
Okay.
Microphone to you after that.
The one question you showed the edited search results. Was it? Did I understand it correctly? So that the table, because if somebody else is asking before for that, and it is a good answer, wasn't it a concept?
No, I showed first the part which is done internally in the company by the editors who's basically preparing content, and the second part was how a customer can use the product.
Yeah.
Of course, what we do try to do is try to feedback and understand what customers do on the product, give feedback to the editors so they can think about, okay, in all the content we have, I'm going to make this content richer, or things like which in the past were. I'll give recent examples. In the past, through the GDPR regulations, there's a lot of search terms around privacy and privacy law and whatever. So that the type of questions people type in, this is information we can feed back to editors who can then think about and know the law and say, okay, these pieces and these pieces, these are the type of things people are looking for. We are going into this first part of the demo and going to look up enriched documents. Typically, editors work from documents. And they say, okay, I'm going to work on these set of documents, and they don't start like I showed with AutoCost and try to find it. They will look differently, say these type of law, I'm going through the documents, and I'm going to start, add additional meta information.
So that means your editors are adding keywords to the
They're
document
adding
snippets or the whole document?
They're adding concepts. For us, we don't call it keywords. We add concepts to that, and contents can be linked to many keywords.
Yeah,
So-
I know. Okay, but is this on the document level or on a
Document level,
section level?
No, it starts in document level, and then in documents you can create, or you can take sections out of document or tables out of document, and you can mark it. This is example. These are definitions, and you start building out that from there.
How much editors you have for doing such things?
Yeah, in the case of tax law 5, I mean, depends a little bit on the type of law, and sometimes you have external relationship with authors which you can pull in when it's relevant and stuff like that. It can land up to a lot of people. Depends on the situation and the
Thank you.
need.
Thank you. Kern, this is a marvelous development and a huge credit to the team at WK. But from the things that you described right at the beginning, this must have been a hard sell to senior management. What was most appealing about what you're doing in selling this investment up the hierarchy?
The strategic approach was the following. We've never approached it from a content or editorial perspective. Never. We've always approached it from the last slides in this presentation. We've approached it from the customer or the product perspective, and looking for a way to respond to product needs to be able to keep revenue also in the future on that. So it's completely driven from the product and the business need side than from the typical content editorial type of style. We would never been able to sell it from, let's say, the inside out. So we had to build the case from the outside in. And on top of that, why in this slide you see that some areas were still gray and not developed? That's because it's still driven, and the priorities today are still driven by product needs and not by, let's say, editorial needs. But we're now 2 years into the journey. Now we start to get in the point where the two will now start to start running together by saying, okay, let's now also prevail some content priority now and put a part of the money in there. But that's how we built it and constructed it.
Just a quick one. Do you think about applying the technology and the search functions to your medical division, Lippincott?
We are in conversation with the division, yeah.
All right, well, thank you, Koen. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this session. If you haven't been scanned, I mean, in terms of your badges, please do see my colleague Harriet here, because we're trying to track attendance. And I would also encourage you to please, if you haven't done that, download the app and rate the sessions that you are attending, because we welcome your feedback. It's lunchtime now. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.